Hey, good morning, guys. Anthony, 4 Diesel. We've got a really awesome question that someone's asked, and I thought that is just an awesome question. It's not normally sometimes it's the can of worms type question. You go, here we go, and everyone does their popcorn thing and sits back. But this is a really cool question, and it's suitable, I think, for not only Prado and 200 series owners and prospective, people that are possibly thinking they're going to upgrade perhaps to a Prado or from a Prado to a 200 series. And I've got a whole heap of information, so I'll just give you a bit of a base qualification first, right? So the question is, firstly, why choose a Prado over the 200 series? As you can see in the picture there, that's the question. It's got a picture of the Prado and the 200 series there. There's a whole heap of comments that we're going to go through. If my internet doesn't let me down here, I'll be reading off another device those questions and those comments, because there's quite a lot of comments there. I didn't read them all yet, so we're going to be a bit candid and sort of, not really know what they're going to be. We'll read through them all. Some of them that I read, though, they were just so in line and so accurate, and it's from people that they either own Prados or 200s, or they've owned both, They've gone one way or the other. And recently I had a client here who upgraded from a 200 series to a Prado. So that's his perspective, and we discussed it at great length. I couldn't believe it, and I totally agree. Now, this is my experience with, for probably, I would estimate around about 8 years now, I've predominantly only worked on Prados and Hiluxes. In the last 5 years, more mainly Prados, okay, which is why, the Prado specialist thing, that's what we do. So we are a Prado specialist, okay? Obviously, it's the same engine as the Hilux, so, 1KD specialist, if you like, as well. And done a fair bit of work on Hiluxes, but not as much as Prados. Now, before that, of course, we worked on 200 series, we worked on all other Toyotas, Camrys, Orions, Klugers, whatever you like, okay? So, been there, done that, but not as experienced. I certainly don't know the 200 series as well as I know the Prados, but it's not about how well, you don't need to know the car that well to make the right decision whether you should buy a Prado or a Hilux. Now, I'm not going to make the decision for you. I'm just going to, like I do, I'll give you the information. I'll tell you what my decision is. My experience with 200 series is mainly because they were newer. So remember, we're going back years ago. When did 200s come out? 2008 or something, right? So we know little bit about the petrol engine. There were some issues with the engines and stuff like that. Engines were getting replaced early days. They chew a lot of fuel, especially those petrol versions. They absolutely chew it. I know owners of those used to bring into me, and they were always, mate, I put $50 in it. It's like $50 a day, mate, because it hurts so much. They just put $50 in to get through the day, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was big money to run a 200 series in the petrol version. And I've heard various reports on the diesel version. Some people say they get really good economy. I get 11 litres per 100 Ks, and even when they're towing their boats, I don't know if they're not sure how to calculate it or something's wrong there, but it does sound too good to be true. I've also heard genuine reports from people that are towing with 200 series and not massive caravans, and they're getting 20s to 25. So look, who knows what the truth is? I'm sure anything you read on the internet between 11 and 25 are their experiences, and I would say to probably expect, depending how you drive and what driving style, obviously comes a lot into it. But it's not just about fuel economy. My perspective is, so most of the work we did was limited to things like suspension lifts. So we did get to see the vehicle, and you do get to see the difference in, I suppose, not quality. The quality's there in both vehicles, but the 200 series, there's a lot more material. It's a lot more solidly engineered. So if you're going to live in the outback of Australia and be hammering it up and down a corrugated rough road and beat the vehicle to death, the 200 series is going to last longer. Okay, so I just want to say that. Years ago, I was in a position I wanted to purchase a 200 series. I'll give you a bit of a background, right? So my father, he's owned, from the GU Patrols through 80 series, 100 series, all that sort of thing. He owned the four-wheel drives. He currently drives a 2013 150 Prado. Okay, funnily enough, an upgrade perhaps. Anyway, a GX, nice and light. We always sort of wanted to get a 200 series as well. So years ago, I went and had a look at the 200, took it for an extensive drive and an investigation myself. This was a brand new one, to get the feel of what's a brand new one before it's been messed around with. What's it like? I was not impressed, okay? I was expecting more. I don't know what I was expecting. It certainly seemed to have less technology than the Prados. A GX has plastic floor. It has the, it doesn't even have carpet, where a GX Prado's got carpet. So, comparing the GX, the GXL, whatever. But look, let's just take a quick look. GXL price was in the $90,000, right? Close to you might as well just say $100,000 car. And then you've got to do your mods to it, right? And it's got less technology than a GXL Prado at the time. Again, this was years ago. Last time I looked into it was probably 3 years ago, maybe 4. Okay, my decision is still, I'd love to, own the king of the road, because Landcruiser was known as king of the road, right? And they used to say Prado, the poor man's Prado. Well, no, not really. That's not what's going to come out in this video. So I wasn't impressed. Why wasn't I impressed? Well, the vehicle seemed big and heavy. You had to push the accelerator a bit to get it moving. A lot of fan noise and whatever, sort of a lot of roar going on. Where in the 1KD, you just give it a squeeze and away you go. Some people think, they used to, the reason my father, he owned the four-wheel drives. I was more into the fast cars. So I've owned cars like, WRXs, S2000s, Honda Civic Type Rs, XR6 Turbo Falcons, V8 Commodores, V8 Falcons, you name it, what have I missed? Probably something in there, but all these sorts of cars. So yes, I'm not a dinosaur. I've been around the faster, the performance cars. I've had bikes. I've been on the circuits, Phillip Island, Winton, also we used to do track days and all that sort of stuff. So been there, done that. So I'm not completely out of touch with performance vehicles and that sort of thing as well. But it's just what we specialise in now. And I've got to tell you, after owning all these vehicles, and many of them new vehicles, the Prado is the best vehicle I've ever owned, and that includes the 120. We've got a 2008 120 Prado. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so we love the Prado, of course. Okay, now as I said, my father, he drives a 2013 150 Prado. We've also got a 2019 Prado 1GD, which we're less impressed with that engine, not the car, the engine, and that's in other videos. But to answer the question, why choose a Prado over the 200 series? Well, basically, my quick answer before we go through and see what everybody else says is, you're paying for a new vehicle, you're paying $30,000 to $40,000 more, kind of minimum, because I can say you can get a GX for about 55 grand, right? In a Prado GX, 55. If you get a manual in white, you're probably closer to 50. I think they're going to take the manual away because the car's too good. It's the best value for money car on the road for someone who wants to tour the Outback, right? So I think they're taking the manual away. They're going to give you some more numbers. Just remember, it's just numbers, guys. It's just numbers. It's the same engine. They're not giving you CCs, okay? They're giving you numbers. We've already got the numbers on the new Prado, and the right foot doesn't feel as good as the 1KD. But that's another story. So you're paying a lot more money. That's one reason to buy the Prado over the 200 series. And what are you getting? Less technology. You're getting more fuel use, and you're getting more or less under the right foot, depends how you look at it, because it takes more to get the vehicle moving. So it's kind of like, it's a bit of a slug to get off the mark. Don't get me wrong, if you're out on the highway, speed and towing, when you're at full noise, when you push that accelerator to the floor, the V8 is going to hammer the Prado. Not by much, but it's going to hammer it because it's a bigger, heavier car as well. But side by side, of course, full noise, the V8 is going to absolutely hammer it. So if you need to go fast, if you're towing, so to answer, why choose a Prado over 200? There's so many reasons. I'll be here too long. So let's go through some of the comments and see what other people have said. Some other experiences I've had is on trips. On trips we've done, driving other people's cars, including 200 series, the same thing, you just notice it looks awesome. It's a nice big thing, but you got to remember 90% or 99.9% for a lot of people % of the time, they're on the road. They need to go to the shops as well. They're harder to maneuver, harder to park. They're a bigger car. They feel big and heavy. The vision out of them, they're not as easy to see out of, this sort of thing. So they're not as nice to drive. The Prados just drive absolutely beautiful, but don't take my word for it. Other people that have driven these cars, and we have our quiet conversations when the 200 series owners aren't there and say, hey, I think I prefer my, and we're all agreed on that. And it's not because any of us can't afford the 200, it's because that's the choice. And I'd love more. I want the V6 twin turbo in a Prado. I've said that before. We might get a underpowered V6 twin turbo in a 300 series by the sounds of it. But I always say wait and see. There can be all this talk. Doesn't matter about talk on the internet until it's here. Because Toyota can make it. It can go to other countries. Doesn't mean it's coming here. TMCA are probably the people who decide what's going to come here. Let's have a look at these comments. So the question, Why choose a Prado over the 200 series? Okay, I'm not going to name anyone, and I'm just going to read the answers as they are. I'm not saying that I approve of the way some people speak or if they swear. I'm just reading the answers. First reply. The only reason to choose a Prado over a 200 series is if you have a mental disability. That's probably not a nice way of saying, well, you haven't done your homework. Next reply. If you can't afford a 200, that's a good answer. That is true. Next one. I love the 200s, but 90k for a GXL or a 70... That's the 70 for a new, or 70 for a new Prado. Hang on, here we go. I love the 200s, but 90k for a GXL or 70 for a new Prado. Prado's cheaper to run, cheaper to service, and the other half doesn't need a race car. That's it, right? And look, even the 200, it's not a race car anyway. And let me just add one other thing about the cheaper to run. People worry about injectors. Well, the V8's got twice as many injectors, twice as many fuel pipes, twice as many valve cover, nozzle seals, everything. It's just double. It's double. It's like doing 2 injector jobs at once. So if you want to get an estimation, double the price. Everything's double. You're just doing 2 separate banks, double the parts. You might save 10%. You know what I mean? It's 2 jobs in one. Okay, next one. Size, cost, and agility off-road. Absolutely. The agility of the Prado, the turning circle, being able to see where it just works so much better, and fitting down the tracks as well. Anyway, I was meant to be reading, not agreeing. Size, cost, and agility off-road. Don't need to tow big weight, value for money. That's right. So the Prado absolutely kills it, in my opinion. The GX Prado, best value for money on the road. Obviously, if you're getting last of the best of 1KD up to 2015, it's probably going to be easier to find a GXL. No issue with that. The downside is if you're touring, the space in the back of the GXL is a lot less than a GX. Go and take a look before you make your purchase, whether it's new or second hand. Okay. Next one, I test drove a 200 and found it too big and couldn't see myself driving such a big tug day to day. Isn't that what I just said? Don't take my word for it. Let's keep reading. It would be okay for the country highway, but that's only half the story for me. Spot on, I totally agree, and I said that. If you live in the outback, if you live somewhere where you're a highway car, absolutely, because you're up at speed, you're not starting a cold engine all the time, you're going to get reasonable economy. The V8 does it easier than the 4-cylinder. This is another advantage. If you're in the, say, in the NT, say you live in Alice Springs and you're always working north of there, or you're between Alice Springs and Darwin, where speed limits are generally 130, and you want to get there, when you're sitting at those sorts of speeds, the Prado, the little 4-cylinder engines, they're working, okay? They're pumping the fuel in. The faster you go over 100, you just add the fuel, add the fuel, add the fuel. Now, the way it works with bigger engines, cubic cc's, you can't beat the cubes, okay? And this is where the 1GD loses the smaller engine, the Prado. The faster you go, the harder you work it. It hasn't got the cubes to do the work. It hasn't got the big turbo. It hasn't got the twin turbos, so it's only got fuel. Okay, so you're overworking a small engine. So the big V8 is better for the highway runs where you've got to travel at higher speeds. It's going to maintain better economy because it's kind of like doing it easy, if you know what I mean. Okay, doing it easy. It's like getting your 5-year-old to carry the 10 kilos. He's going to do it hard. You do it, big muscle man dad. You know, you're going to do it easy, mate. You know, bang, easy. All right, let's keep reading. It'll be okay on the high, but that's only half the story for me. Perhaps, in part, it's because I'm a little guy. The Prado tows our 2-ton expander just fine. So there you go. You know me, I don't sort of recommend massive towing with the Prados. Again, I've explained the small engine in a pretty large car, but the rest of the vehicle, I love the Prados, okay? And, you know, like I said, prepare for anything. The Prados are awesome. They drive well in so many ways, you know, and the 200, it just doesn't excite me. You get in it, you drive it. It's a bit of deflation. And how could you bring yourself, afford to pay that extra 30, 40, 50 grand? We're sort of talking something in the 50s to something in the 90s, 40 grand, let's say. 40 grand more to get a bit more right foot only when you're under full noise. Because as I said, it sort of takes a bit to get them moving. And we'll get to a comment that confirms that. It's not just me that noticed that. Okay, now, here we go. Prado is bang for buck. However, I would like to see a small V6 in the Prado. Absolutely. Okay, Toyota, if you guys ever listen to this one, mate, every man on the planet is going to buy a Prado. This is what we want. Diesels are dirty pigs. We want a nice little, super efficient, about a 3.5 litre V6 petrol with twin turbos. Make it a hybrid, please, so people can go to school and back, shops and back, work and back without the engine even starting. with a plug, mate. Like that Mitsubishi one, it's got a plug on it. Charge it overnight for $1. You can do about 50 k's without the engine even starting. It's going to be so efficient. And then on the longer highway trips where you're going to get the torque out of the turbos, the V6. Think about it, back to those performance vehicles, those V6, like, remember the Sora had a V6, if I remember correctly, with twin turbos or something. I never worked on them, I just know of them, you know what I mean? You see them around, people imported them. They were so torquey, so powerful and torquey engine. You get your torque from the turbos, it's not just about diesel engines, okay? So guys, my advice right now, if you're still with me, don't buy any new diesel engines. There's nothing out there that I would go and buy a new diesel engine that I would recommend. Do as I say, not as I do. Our 1GD, it's for R&D. Well, it's not D. We're not developing it. It's for research purposes, okay? To educate ourselves about. We don't recommend the 1GD engine. The 1KD is the last of the best. Stick with that. We'll let you know when there's a better engine. There'll be something coming. If people stop buying these, I don't want to swear, engines, they'll have to come up with alternatives. Stick with your old car. It's cheaper. Spend a bit of money on it. Do the maintenance. Watch our videos. You can learn to do a lot of it yourself and take it to our recommended repairers. They can do the job right, look after that one, keep it going for a few more years yet. Diesels are on the way out, okay? Now, okay, I chose Prado over 200 because of the price, and Prado is cheaper to use as a daily for me. Next one, if you need to put the rear seat up and down, wagon door, okay? Next one, 200 don't come out in manual, good. Next one, we have a 200 and are moving down to a Prado. I'm so sick of paying V8 rego. Just reading the replies, guys. Don't take my word for it. Next one, I've had both. I can't find a reason you'd get a Prado over a 200. Okay, there you go. Someone that likes the 200 better. So there's always, it's always going to suit someone. Okay, maybe they haven't driven the Prado. They don't know what they're missing. You know what I mean? Okay, next one. I love the drive in the Prado. Spot on, Adrian, mate. At the end of the day, we all do too. Everybody loves their Prados. Prado has more power to weight ratio, someone said. Next one. I chose the Prado as the 200 is too big actually to get into my garage. And at the end of the day, the Prado is a lot cheaper. Spot on. Next. I don't tow, and with a 150 litre tank, I save 4 to 5 litre per 100k. Saves about 8k in fuel over 100 k's. I'm not sure exactly what that went, how it saves 8k in fuel over 100. Anyway, because that doesn't calculate. 4 to 5 litres per 100 saves about 8k. Yeah, something like that. Oh, 8 kilometres or something. Anyway, they're going to be cheaper to run, absolutely, in so many ways. So that's another point that I want to say. The 200 series has only got a 138 litre fuel tank. The Prado's got a 150 litre fuel tank. Or if you want more, that's another reason I like the 120. It's got 180 litres. We did a trip not that long ago and we're trying to avoid contamination. That's why the fuel tanks are big as well. The more times you fill up out there in these places where you're risking getting bad fuel, you don't want to fill up and get nervous every 200 k's. You got these cars with little tanks. We did, for example, Derby across the Gib, including up to Mitchell Falls and back down again and across the Gib. Didn't buy fuel again till Kununurra. I'm not saying Derby and Kununurra's got good fuel, but it's going to be better than buying at some of these stations right out there. So the fuel tank size is another bonus in both the Prados, really. The 200 series, any of these touring vehicles, in my opinion, they need around the 200 litre fuel tank. Depending on how efficient they are, 2 to 250 litres. We know you can get a 250 litre fuel tank in there. I know reasons why, but they need to maybe have it as a cheap factory option to have the bigger fuel tank. I'm sure a lot of people, the sort of people that are buying these cars, should be using them for outback touring type thing. There's other vehicles. If you're not hitting the outback, that's where you buy something like a Kluger. It's a big car. They're awesome cars. They drive great. They're not too big. It's an efficient V6 engine, 10, 11 litres per 100 k's, cheaper to run in fuel and maintenance. I'm not telling you to buy a Prado. I'm telling you to buy a Prado. If you're going to like your Kluger as well. Compare the Kluger. I'm telling you, probably don't buy a 200 series. But anyway, or anything like it. Way overpriced. Anyway, I told you I wasn't going to tell you that. Sorry. Anyway, I'll keep going. I don't tell you yet. We did that one. Size for us and price. 200 was way too big for our needs, and the price tag as well. Exactly. Another one. Love the look and drive, and perfect size for the camping setup I wanted. I guess he was talking about the Prado. Richard says, I own a 200 about Sahara and D4D Prado. So he owns both, okay? It's like chalk and cheese. The 200 is way better, rides bucket loads, more power, and also off-road, only uses 1 per 100. I think he meant to ride 11 per 100, which is what I said. I've heard reports like that. But every now and then you hear these reports, and the people that give some of their fuel economy reports, because they've got a lot of pride in their vehicle, and I'm not saying Richard is doing this, but a lot of people do, they'll give you the best economy they've ever seen. Like I could tell you, in our 2019 Prado, within the last week on a drive that lasted 1 hour, a 1 hour drive, I got 6.5 litres per 100 Ks. 6.5, guys. Is that what I tell everyone I get? No. But I'll tell you what I get. On this tank, it's got really good economy. But you've got to understand, I don't do short trips in it, cold start short trips. It's always that minimum half an hour drive, maybe 20 minutes now and then, usually half an hour, usually an hour, usually many hours. It's a touring vehicle. At the moment, with stock tyres and no modifications on a very light GX on high tyre pressures, the tank, and since I reset it, is getting 9 litres per 100 Ks, to give you an idea. It's very good. It's a stock Prado. It goes up once you modify it. Add your off-road tyres, add your roof racks, add your bull bars, add your awnings, add all your weight. You're going to be around 11, 12, so some people 13, 14 if you're in a hurry. Okay, anyway, back to reading this one. Hope you understand. You know, I'm talking about lots of awesome information, and I need a drink. Lots of awesome information to help you decide which one of these you want to be, and with other information about the Prados as well. So let's keep reading Richard's. Bucket loads, more power, also better off-road, only use 11 per 100 fuel. More the only thing my Prado does better is the shopping centre car parks for parking and school run. Although I have, so how could it do better? So it kind of confirms anyway. So that's what we said. At highway, if you're on the highway all the time and that's all you use it for, a highway tourer that you're out in the outback, it's going to be great. Okay, so if you're a guy that runs a tag along tour business, then I think a 200 series is the right thing for you. And you might have another little car or your wife's car at home. Like, I'll give you an example. We've got a Camry here as well. The Camry goes to school, the Camry goes to the shops, the Camry goes to the gym, the Camry goes all these places, right? If it's available, that's where it'll take me if I'm going to go to the shops. Second choice, I love driving the 120. The 120 goes to the shops, right? The 1KD, we've got a solution there. It doesn't have a DPF that's going to get clogged up and not do good burns with all the short trips, okay? The 120, that's where the 1KD rules in Australia. It hasn't got a DPF, okay? DPFs, you know, they keep changing the software and everything and make it better and solve the problem. But the problem is it needs to do a good burn every now and then. If you're not doing the right driving at the right time and you don't get to pick, the car gets to pick, that's the problem. There's no input from you whatsoever to say, okay, I'm doing 100 now for the next hour. Do me a good burn, please. No, the button doesn't do that. Sorry. Anyway, we're meant to keep reading. Now he says, although I have bought myself a Subaru Outback luxury for the shopping cart now, as even sometimes I can't find parking the Prado these days. So Richard's got plenty of dough. He's got 200s Prados and Outback luxuries and everything. So if you've got the money, he likes it obviously, and he says it handles better, it rides bucket loads better. Well, that can do with the setup of the tyres and the suspension, but I will agree that being that heavier, it is a much heavier setup. I'll give you an example, right? A comparison of the two. The Prado's awesome, strong, and all the suspension and bushes and everything last hundreds of thousands of Ks and many years. There's nothing wrong with it. But the 200 series dwarfs it, okay? It absolutely dwarfs it. When you put a 150 on the hoist, side by side to a 200 series or something like that, and you compare the suspension components, stock, struts, shockers, control arms, whatever you like, okay? It makes the Prado look like a twig. Now, I don't want to downgrade the Prado. It's nice and light. It does the job. It's perfectly strong. It doesn't wear out. But just to give you a bit more information, it does, the 200 series dwarfs the Prado. It really does. You know what I mean? If I'm saying that the right way. But anyway, on to the next one. This guy says, I'm literally going through this right now. Massive dilemma for me at the moment, to be honest. Okay, hopefully I'm going to post this video today into this as a reply, and that's why I'm doing it. I'm summarising all the information together, including my experiences as a technician and driving and trying to own a 200 series, and I just won't do it, okay? The money can sit there. It's sitting there waiting for the right vehicle. I'll let you know. Be subscribed. Have the bell on. I'll let you know the right vehicles to buy from a wise automotive Outback 4x4 experience, you know? Okay, we'll read on that one. He says, the Prado with the 150 litre tank gives excellent range. I won't be towing, and I'll be getting the GVM upgrade pre-reg. Oh, I can't stand that GVM upgrade. Just get a smaller van. I explained it before, I'm not going to go on too long about it. Small engine. If you need to tow something big, then go by the 200 series. If you're only using it once every 2 years for a week, then use the Prado and deal with it, okay? Something like that. It's got to be a balance. Everything's got to be a balance, guys. Anyway, on to the next one. Prado heaps cheaper, but would probably go the Patrol over. This is interesting information. There's a few bit of Patrol talk, and you've got to look at the Patrol. You do have to look at it because it is cheaper. It's a Nissan, so it's cheaper. They need to compete with Toyota because Toyotas are the best. But what I'll say about the Nissan, it's made in Japan. We like all our stuff made in Japan, right? You know, believe it or not, Japan makes the best cars. Out of all these vehicles I've owned, mainly Japanese or Australian made. Australian because trying to do the right thing, and Japanese because they're best. I've never owned or will own any of these European vehicles or anything on a brand like Kia, Hyundai, Daewoo, Audi, Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, and this sort of the like thing. You know what I mean? You know where I'm heading. But anyway, let's read this one. Prado heaps cheaper would probably go the Patrol over a 200 for price difference if I needed an upgrade. Don't have 100k to spend for a modestly equipped tow rig. Spot on, mate. At the end of the day, we said it's cheaper. It's got a heap of power there. It's like driving around a Club Sport R8, you know, V8 Commodore in a four-wheel drive. It'd be just crazy. And yes, I looked at purchasing one. Way too big for me at this stage. As I said, these big vehicles, remember what we said, king of the road. If you're out on the highway and that's where you're going to be, if you're going to park it and you're just going to use it for trips, if you're retired and you're going to pull something around the country, these are the big vehicles you might want, and they'd be suitable for you for your big towing purposes. You sit in the Patrol, it's really wide, the dash spans across and you can barely reach the other side of the car. You've got this big mother console. It's luxurious. It goes like a V8 Commodore. Absolutely awesome. I've even been went in Trevor's once and it went like a V8 Commodore with a turbocharger. Whoop! Anyway, that was a bit of fun. I think more for him than me because he was driving. Anyway, hopefully he watches this video and has a laugh. Okay, next one. Next one, sliding up. Internet's still working, good. We're on the edge of our Wi-Fi here, so when I go to move the comments up, nearly losing it. I can think of one good reason to get a Prado over a 200 series dollars. I actually can think of about 20,000 reasons. I think you might have. I can think of one good reason to get a Prado over 200. Oh, so to save money, I guess is what he's trying to say. Next one, anything with a Landcruiser badge will always have a good resale. Prados are just better for parking if you don't have concerns about money. Side Landcruiser is the big boy's toy. Nah, so that's what it is. It's a bit of a show-off thing, you know. Some people have got to have the 200, you know. Oh, yeah, you know, look at me, I've got the best. I think there's a bit of that has got to do with it. You know, sorry to the guys watching that have got one. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it's a bit of a show-off thing as well, like this guy said. Let me go. Anything like that. And this is the other thing. With a resale value, let's be clear here. The 200 series resale isn't any better than the Prado. These Toyotas, they hold their value like real estate, okay? They do hold their value really well. So whether you go for the Prado or 200, 200 is ridiculously overpriced. You go and look at one now, you go and buy a second-hand one, 10 years old, and they want 60, 70 grand. Dreaming, mate, you know? Who's paying 60, 70, 80% of a new car value for a car that's 10 years old that's about to blow up or need injectors for 8 grand or something like that? Just forget it, mate. Good luck with that. The warranties on new cars are good, so for people that can afford them, that's a bonus for them because they can avoid all these DPF and other issues that are going to arise. But the problem is for the second and third owners, they're the ones that couldn't afford the new car, that also can't afford the 8 grand for injectors. So just be aware of that, guys. Moving on to the next one. I rarely tow anything and my Prado goes pretty much anywhere. Guess it comes down to what you need. Good answer. Next one. Well, budget is the reason why you'd mostly go for a Prado, in my opinion. If the price was on par, see, this is the thing. He's saying, you know, if the price is on par, you'd get a 200, right? Now, not quite right. I'm sure if the price is on par, you'd see a lot more because people want the V8 and they need to tow and this sort of thing, right? So price is one factor, but for myself, this is the problem I've got. If the price is on par, I still want the Prado because I've got to drive it 99% of the time. I've got to get on the tracks. I've got to turn around. I've got to... it's just lighter, more agile. You know, you got when you go to the shops, when you drive, you know, driving around on the streets, going around corners, roundabouts, whatever. The big 200 series, it ain't fun driving around slow. It's drive a straight line highway type car, in my opinion, right? So if the price is on par, that would make it real. For me, the decision's easy at the moment. 55 for a GX Prado versus 90 odd grand for a GXL 200 series. No, you know, it's a no-brainer. Make the price the same, I'd be going, oh God, no, I can get the V8, but I'm just going to hear all this fan noise, and it's going to not drive as good. Look, I probably would go the 200 series. I'd get sucked into it, definitely, because I haven't owned one, okay? But I'm probably going to go, but it does suck a bit that the Prado drove better. So you got to sort of put at the moment, it's a clear determining factor that you're going to have a Prado over 200 because the price is so massive on top of all the other reasons, in my opinion, of course. Okay, we had a 200 now. We are downgrading to a Prado. It comes down to dollars, I think. There you go. Someone's downgrading. Got some information for you, Tal. You are upgrading. Enjoy the drive. Okay, next one. I've been tossing up between new Kakadu and 200 series. I've decided to go Kakadu purely because I don't plan on doing any towing. Cheaper rego, cheaper insurance, better on fuel, easier to park. Spot on. You'll be glad you did. People with the Kakadus, that's all good. If you're thinking about going off-road and you want to modify the suspension, just think twice. But if you're going to keep it standard and you're happy with a very slight lift, that's okay too. So check out our suspension videos on our channel if you want to know a bit more about the Kakadu. Just search suspension or Dobinson's Kakadu and see what comes up in the search on our channel, and you can find out a bit more about that because it's a little bit more complicated modifying the suspension on a Kakadu because of the KDSS and the airbag situation. Whoops, I just accidentally touched the wrong button and I've lost all my comments. This is painful, not good. All right, give me a sec, guys. I'm just going to stop the video. Oh no, they come back to me. Here we go. And I've got to touch load previous comments and find where I was. This is the problem. Here we go. I think I'm pretty much on the right. Yep, we found the right spot. Had a 200, been tossing up between a Kakadu. Next one. Jeez, I did well there. Someone wrote 200 all the way. Someone wrote, wait for the 300 series next year. It's a gem. Now, I'd probably add some weight to that comment as well. Wait and see is what I'd say, and I wouldn't say buy one, order in advance. Wait and see is definitely what you want to do. Had a 200, next one. Had a 200 GXL, now have a 2020 VX. Absolutely love the Prado over the 200. Bada bing. Cheaper to buy, cheaper to run, more agile and car easier to maneuver around town. The only real reason to buy a 200 over a Prado to me is for towing or the old dick measuring contest. Sorry guys, I said I was just going to read it as it was. Now that comment kind of has the cumulative answer of all the information we've been going through that I've supplied and all those owners have replied with. Let's read it again, it's really good. Had a 200 GXL. Now have a 2020 VX. Absolutely love the Prado over the 200. Cheaper to buy, cheaper to run, more agile and car-like. Easier to maneuver around town. Only real reason to buy a 200 over a Prado for me is for towing. The old, we don't need to read that again, right? So a combination of, you know, what I mentioned just previously about the bit of a contest, look at me, look what I've got. A little bit of that for some people, you know. King of the road, it is cool, man. And I got to be honest, I think we all want one of those for a bit of that and have the king of the road, but it's certainly not the right decision at the moment. It may have been in the past with 80 series back in the day. 80 series was awesome, mate, you know. Just awesome, really. I mean, they had their problems. Every vehicle has their problems, okay? I still maintain Toyotas are the best on the overall engineering, but they can make mistakes and they sort it out, okay? So, and it's, of course, pick on Toyota when they do. But anyway, that's another video. Next one. Prado used to be called poor man's Landcruiser. Okay, that's right. It used to be, not anymore. Now it's the wise man's cruiser. Anyway, next one. 200 is too big and heavy for my needs. With a lift and better tyres, the Prado is brilliant, off-road especially on sand. Tows my camper well and is still practical around town. It's nothing about dollars for me. There you go, another good reply. Someone wrote size and dollars. Agree. Another guy writes, the only reason I'd go a Prado is if I didn't want to spend 200 money. Other than that, 200 all day. It'll hold a lot more value over time. I disagree, it's all relative. You spend 100, it's going to be worth 60 in 10 years, you know, 60, 70, whatever. On a Prado, you spend 60, it's going to be worth 35 in 10 years, something like that. Ballpark figures, they go about the same. You know, there might be a little bit in it that the 200 holds a little bit better, but it shouldn't, because it's going to cost twice as much on maintenance for the second and third owners. So let's hope people watch this video and get themselves educated, take that into account. I hope you're really enjoying this video, guys. If you haven't already, hit pause, go and give it the thumbs up, and then press resume again. We'll have some awesome replies coming your way. Okay, love the 200. Love that my GXL has no tech. So they actually like it that it's got no tech. And I agree, less technology, sometimes the better, especially if you're doing outback travel, the rough tracks, the corrugations. I think a 200 GXL is kind of good for those reasons. So, yeah. And the 300 could get worse with technology, and I don't know what they're going to do. I've got no idea. I'd hate to see if they went independent suspension all round. You know, it could be a good independent suspension all round. You know, electronics, airbags, KDSS on GXL models, that'd be uncool, right? Unless you don't want to modify the suspension. So if you're a tourer, then that's probably okay. Okay, so take that into account. If you want to have that lift and do the harder tracks as well, go those sorts of places. You're going up the Cape and you want to do the OTL, you might want to be able to monitor. You're going to tear your expensive beast to pieces because that's what it is, and you couldn't modify the suspension, or you're going to make it unreliable because you were one of the first of one of them with the first modifications, and you may have problems. Anyway, we'll keep reading. Next reply. Preference in power and space is literally all you should be concerned when choosing. If it then becomes a question between cost, then you're not ready for a 200 because literally everything will cost you more. So that's a good point. Any for example, fuel, insurance, and registration. That's a good point. If you're tossing and thinking, oh, should I spend the extra money? Don't, okay? Because we've given you the reasons not to already. And if it's about money, don't do it because it's going to hit you harder than you think. If you're doing well and you're loaded and you want to be king of the road and king of everything else, look at me, you know, the ego thing, then go ahead and do it because, you know, you're loaded anyway, right? Whatever, do what you got to do. And hopefully this information makes it so there's less of these things around, so there's less to go around, and that will add a bit more holding value for those people that own them. But you better keep them because nobody's going to buy them second hand, because everything's going to fail when you're selling them when they're 8 and 10 years old because you've been hammering in the outback and through the rivers and all that sort of thing, right? So value of the 200 series is coming down right now. Sorry. Okay, next one. He tagged someone in and said, here's a good debate. And it's not a debate, it's actually really peaceful. I'm quite proud of everyone and their answers. It's pretty good actually, and there's some really good information, which is why I thought I'd do this video. I know some people are going, oh, you know, get on with it, but we're just discussing the replies. We've fed you the information. I'll give you a bit more at the end as a conclusion. Okay, it like father and son. Okay, next one. After driving a 200 for years, the Prado felt like a much lighter rig. Handling wise much better, and even take off didn't need to prod the throttle as much. In saying that, when the V8 is on full go, much quicker than the 150. So that's another good one that backs up what I said already, right? Let's read it again. After driving a 200 for years, the Prado felt much lighter rig, and it is light. It does feel, and it's not just about the weight, guys. It's the weight, but it's also, it's because it's just the mapping. It just goes, mate, compared to a 200, right? It doesn't make the noise, it just goes. Handling wise, much better, even takeoff. So in the Prado, the takeoff, you didn't need to prod the throttle as much, right? And that's what I'm trying to say. In the V8, you got to, and you get a lot of fan noise before it starts moving off. A lot of it's got to do with probably the transmission and the torque converter, the engine fans making the noise, but the way the transmission is, I don't know. Look, I'm not a fan of it. I drive them, I see them. You know, we'll be up on, I remember this one up on Blue Rag, and I'm like, we're there and we're just all there in a group, and there's a 200 series leaving, and I just hear it start up, and I hear the fan noise. He's on a slight incline. Just the revs and the fan noise to get the thing going, and the fans blowing dust everywhere off the engine, you know, under the car. I just went, oh, what a heap. You know, another reason not to buy one of them. Anyway, so that's what he said. But he also said, in saying that, when the V8 is on full go, much quicker than the 150. And that's what I'm saying. If you line them up side by side, or if you're out on the highway at 100 k's and you've got to overtake, the 200 series is going to do it because it's got the cubes, it's got the turbos, it's got the grunt to push through that wind resistance. where the Prado hasn't, guys. I'm sorry, the Prado's not an overtaking machine. If you want an overtaking machine, a family car that can tow your camper and you're mainly going to campsites on sealed roads or some light dirt roads, whatever, get yourself a Kluger. They are a rocket ship. They overtake like a sports car, okay? V6 Kluger, mate, I'm telling you. So for the people that go, oh, he just wants you to keep the 1KD so he can make money. No, he doesn't give a stuff about that. I'm here to give you genuine, authentic information, okay? That's what I'm doing. Please understand, I don't care what car you own. Because at the end of the day, if it was about money, it doesn't matter who owns it. They're still going to be there and someone's going to do the maintenance. People are going to buy the injector kits, the wheel bearing kits, the Donaldson's lift kits. And when they don't, I'll do something else. There's so many ways, in the entrepreneur ways, to make money. It's not a problem, okay? So just understand, genuine information. Buy a Camry, if that's what suits you. Buy the Kluger, buy whatever you want. In my opinion, don't buy a new diesel at the moment. In my opinion, stick with Toyotas. So what does that mean? Stick with what you've got last of the best at the moment. Something hopefully will be coming soon. We can't keep these, maybe we're going to keep 120 Prado. Can you imagine when you're 65, 75, driving around your 120 Prado and it's like 40, 45 years old? Yeah, mate, you know, I know everything I need to know because Aunt told me so. And you're driving around in your 120, 150 Prado. It's like, you know, 40 years old. Awesome, guys. Hopefully we can still get parts then. Might have to start hoarding parts for you, and you might too. So something to think about. Let's see what happens over the next few years. The warning is most parts we can get to at least 2025 because 1KD's in Australia. 2015 was the last of them. They have to supply parts for 10 years. So we've got about another 5 years to see what they release that may be an upgrade. And if not, start hoarding some parts, mate. Spare set of injectors in the closet, you know, some pipes and seals and gaskets, some wheel bearings, you know, whatever, a couple of sets of suspension. I'm sure we'll still be able to get suspension and stuff like that. But that's where it'll go to more aftermarket stuff. You'll have your Chinese copies available. You'll have your reman, rebuilt type stuff, which we know doesn't work well with these engines in most cases. With any engine, it's not just about Prados. It's what I specialise in. I specialise in the best. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Just get a new S5 Patrol, more power, heaps cheaper, more reliable. Okay, well, you know, we sort of touched on that as well. Someone else wrote, just get a Y62 Patrol, top spec, same price as Prado Kakadu, cheaper to service and maintain, more power than the 200 series and more comfy than either. I've got to agree with that so far. I would go and buy, if somebody said no more Prados, they stopped making Prados, and Anth, we're taking your Prados off you, what you've got, and here's 80 grand to go buy a car, and I'm like, well, I want to travel, I want to tour, I'm going to get a Patrol. I don't even have to look, I'll go buy a Patrol. I'll do a deal on a Patrol. I'll say, hey guys, I'll come on this channel, I'll say, guys, we've got to get, you know, has it happened to everyone? Let's assume it's happened to everyone. There's no more Prados. Toyota's gone bankrupt, okay? No more Prados, no more parts. All their engines are blown up, transmissions are shagged, and, you know, they're just on the scrap heap. What do we got to buy? You know, trying to give you, paint a picture, sorry, you know. I'm going to say, guys, we all need to go buy Patrols. Now, we need to go do a deal with Nissan and buy a bulk amount, you know, and get wink, wink. You know, we're going to buy 100 Patrols, get a good price. And what Nissan will say is, oh, you know, we can't supply, we haven't got that many. But anyway, we do what we can. We go get a Patrol, mate, because they've been around for years. So all the problems they would have fixed up. They're made in Japan. They're decent value for money. I don't mind the Patrol. Nissan is not a brand that I say is great, but it's not a bad brand. So out of my brands of manufacturers that I like and that I don't like, Nissan's in the middle. It's on the good side, you know, just slightly on the good side, and particularly the ones made in Japan brings them from about 60% of the good, you know, 60% good, up to about 80%, okay? So made in Japan. The other Nissans not made in Japan, they're sort of 50-50. They're all right, you know, generally, depending which one and what you're using it for. Let's read the last few comments, not many to go now. Last two replies is me. Nobody wants to talk after I come in. What's going on there? All I wrote was, so many good reasons, no time to list them. And that's where I went, great idea for a video, and here we are, guys. And then, yeah, that's it. It's can I refresh that? Let me just have a look and see. 96 comments. Let me just see if there's any more. And we'll wrap it up. Okay, that's it, guys, for this one. So I hope that helps you understand. Bada bing, right? You know, bada bing, right? There it is, right? Yep. Why choose a Prado over 200 series? So I think we sort of pretty well answered that one, did we not? They're my answers. Bada bing. Do we need to go over it again? Do we need to have a conclusion? I think I need another drink. So look, we've all heard a bit of a whisper here and there about a 300 series coming along, and some people have heard more than a whisper. I don't research it. I'm not a guy that sits in hope of waiting for what might happen. Live a bit for now, plan a little bit into the future, but just wait and see what happens with everything, you know. It's like COVID-19. Wait and see, what do you think you're going to plan, mate? There's nothing you can do anyway, okay? It's in the so-called leaders' control, and we're not going to go in this video about whether they're doing the right thing or not and all that, and we know a lot of people have had enough of it, especially in Victoria. Sit tight, hopefully it shouldn't be too much longer, but just sit tight. Don't go, oh, it's going to be this and it's going to be that, right? Unless you're getting 100% reliable information from Toyota employees in Australia that can be relied upon. And look, put it in the comments here. If you've made it to the end, please, if you didn't already, give us a thumbs up if you got something out of that. I'll be keen to be looking in the comments. If you got any information about what's coming in the 200 series probably next year or whenever it is. I've heard things about V6s, twin turbos, different engine options, you know, more or less power and all that sort of thing. So and I'm sure you're going to pay a penalty for it as well. And that's where they catch you. They go, well, let's keep this one at this price for those people that can afford that. But let's make this one how many kilowatts more, and it's probably going to be mainly a remap or a slightly different size turbo. I don't know what they're going to do. And it's probably going to be 20 or 30 grand more, and that's big money. That buys a whole Camry, guys. Just remember that. It buys a whole Camry, which is cheaper to run. It's super cheap on servicing. It's cheap on tyres. It's cheap to buy. It's cheap on rego. It gets the family around. So perhaps what you've got to do is you've got to keep your Prado, look after it, give it a run at least once a week, keep the batteries on charge, use that for your touring trips. And if you want a nice new car, you buy something smaller, mate. Maybe you need to start looking into electrics. I think depends where you live. Hybrids aren't necessarily the answer. Hybrids are not bad. Hybrids can work for the 300 series because if the capacity of the battery is there, that it uses battery alone to go to the shops and back and all that, and the engine doesn't start, then that's beautiful for emissions. It's beautiful for how much it costs to run. And then as soon as you hook up your caravan and hit the road and the engine starts up and you've got your turbos, you're in business. So look, guys, like I said, if you haven't already, hope you can see we've got some awesome information coming your way. If you haven't already, subscribe, turn that bell on, and do everyone a favor and share it. So don't just share it to the Prado group, share it to the 200 group, share it to the other Toyota groups, share it to your friends, anything automotive. You know, we're going to widen up the information a little bit. It's not just about Prados, and you know, so we've got a bit of advice, and some people will agree, some people won't, some of the comments, whatever, but it's not just me. As I went through all those comments and we read through those, and that pretty well backed up my experiences, which is from not owning them, but owning a lot of different other four-wheel drives, a lot of trips, working on these vehicles, seeing the vehicle's modification, putting its suspension in, and listening to what the owners have to say, and including reading all those posts there on that, you know, it's not really Landcruiser versus 200. It was why buy a Prado over 200. It was a good way to put it. It was a good question. It was well asked. Anyway, I'm going on now, so we're out of here. Bada bing, bada boom. Thanks for watching. Catch ya.